Hey you guys, welcome to the T Series. My name is Joshua Johnson. I am a Flint Fashion Photographer and a graduate of Ferris State University with my bachelor's in graphic design. And today we'll be talking about fashion photography. So let's get started.
We talked about some challenges you faced along the way. Were there any other challenges or roadblocks you faced?
So the biggest roadblock that I've had, a lot of times in the African American community, mental illness is kind of a taboo topic, and I never realized that mental illness can be a part of anyone. So my stepsister was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar before I was actually diagnosed with it. So when she was diagnosed, I kind of had this not believing her of what was going on, of not understanding why she was the way she was until it actually happened to me. When I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, it really changed my life. It changed my life as far as taking medication every day, making sure that I'm drinking water, vitamins, and eating every day. Because a lot of times I'll go, and I don't eat,
Yeah, I do
and
the same thing.
that's a problem, especially with mental health. So, with that being said, it taught me that this is what I wanted to do. Because even in my lowest parts of my psychiatric, I've always wanted to do this. And I always was that person that said, I'm going to be that person that's shooting the magazines. I'm a professional fashion photographer. Through it all, photography has always been my outlook, always been my way of constantly keeping happiness, always constantly doing something. I take so much pride in my work because I love what I do. When it comes to styling and fashion, I get my outlook as far as expressing myself through clothing and posing and images. When I look at other people, sometimes I'm able to relate to my clients, especially when they have existing mental illnesses such as anxiety issues or different things like that. I'm very understanding of that, and it helps me with my approach of how I can talk to that person. Because researching through psychology, it really helps me. I took a few psychology classes back in college, and learning how different people think and learning to not label people and learning not to judge people and learning to listen and understand how people are. A lot of times when we look at mental illness, we look at these stereotypes and these projections of what the worst could be. Mental illness is one of those things that everyone to a certain extent has, whether it's anxiety, whether it's mood disorders. It's one of those things that people deal with. And as an adult, we need to learn how to talk about these. We need to learn how to better ourselves. A lot of times I look into how I can help people, how words can help affect people's mental. A lot of times when you think of the old saying that your mother says, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. It's true, because you never know what a person's going through and you never know what a person's life is at. So you always want to be respectful of that person because you never know the underlying. Me personally, when you look at me, you never see a mental illness. And I feel like I'm a great face of what mental illness is, because mental illness isn't this disorder that makes you physically or actually look different. It's the same way that everyone else looks. It's just the way that a person thinks and how they can treat it. A lot of times with mental illness, a person takes the medication and feels they're getting better. Medication is needed to help keep you balanced. And I've learned that. I've learned that along with medication, you need other sources than the medication itself, such as therapy, such as counseling, such as meditation. I practice yoga just to help clear my thoughts, to help
Yeah.
relax and things like that.
What
So,
sort of things do you do to kind of relieve some of that?
so one of the biggest coping mechanisms that I use, and I also give this advice to other people, whenever I feel that I'm having a manic moment, And just for definition purposes, manic can be described in two different ways. It can either be described in anger or depression. A person who is manic sometimes expresses it in anger, others expresses it in depression. So when you look at those coping mechanisms, a lot of times breathing techniques. I learned the five senses. So if I'm ever in a state where I feel like I'm manic, I always do my five senses. I close my eyes and listen for five things around me. I touch for four things around me. I smell three things around me. And then I taste two things around me, and I open my eyes. And taste can be just as simple as licking your lips.
I was gonna say, do you want to go ahead and like demonstrate that?
So,
if you feel comfortable doing
yeah,
it.
actually,
I
so
think that would be a really good.
when I do my five senses, the first thing I'll do is feel for five things. I'll close my eyes, take deep breaths, and just feel around for things. A lot of times for people who have mental illnesses, they hallucinate. And if you're in a hallucination, the best thing to do is close your eyes. Because if your eyes is closed, you should be seeing black anyway. So touching for four things, you know that those four things are real and those four things are there. Well, if you're hallucinating, that's not there. You can't physically touch that. So if you're touching your shirt, your clothes, you know these things are making your reality a little bit more sharper. When you're smelling, smells can bring back memories. For an example, if you have a candle lit and it smells like apple pie, it might remind you of your mom that one time she made you happy. If you smell anything else, fresh air, a lot of times, especially in the African American community, we have what's known as a vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D is where you get your natural energy from the sun. And the melatonin in African American skin, especially in Michigan, we don't receive enough of that. So a lot of depression is caused from vitamin D deficiencies. And a lot of times when it comes to mental illness, the things you eat can help it. If a person is manic, the best thing you can ask them, the worst thing to ask them is, have you took your meds? Have you took your meds should be followed by, I'm not trying to offend you. That should be the last question you ask. The first question you should ask is, have you eaten or drinking anything today? The whole saying, you're not yourself when you eat a Snicker, is actually true. You're not yourself when you're hungry. You're a lot more agitated. You're a lot more quicker to rage because your mind is telling you, I'm hungry. I need something to satisfy me. But your thoughts is saying, this right here is a problem and it's counteracting your hunger. And from a person who studies psychology, I personally studied the actual psychology of death. I've had a near-death experience, and that near-death experience is actually what led to my psychiatric break. 3 years ago, I was in a very intense car accident and almost lost my life. And when I looked at the psychology of people who also experience near-death experiences, a lot of times the adrenaline and what the brain is actually capable of doing is hallucinating things. So when people feel that rush of adrenaline where they don't feel anything, you can be in a life-threatening situation and don't feel a single thing. It's because the mind knows that you're in a dangerous situation. A lot of times it's all in the mind, and you have to constantly remind yourself it's just your thoughts. Something that I looked into that really helped me is I have an emotional support animal. I love my cat to death because no matter what, she's always there, and she's always a sound that I'm familiar with.
What's her name?
Sabrina. Yeah, her name was supposed to be Selena after Catwoman, but I didn't do my research on Gotham. So emotional support animals are very I highly recommend those. Just because when you think about a cat or a dog, they have to eat twice a day.
Yeah.
If you forget to feed your cat, she's going to be very upset at you, and she's going to be
Yeah.
looking at you like, why haven't I eaten all day? If your cat hasn't eaten, 9 times out of 10, you haven't eaten. So if you have your cat on a set schedule for she has to eat at this time, I've noticed that my cat personally does not eat until I'm eating. Like she will eat all her food when I'm eating. So it's more of a reassurance that I need to take care of her and make sure her needs are made. And a lot of times with the medication needs to be taken daily.
Yeah.
Me personally, I take my mood stabilizers twice a day. It helps me to know that I have to feed my cat twice a day, and I also have to take my pills twice a day. So it puts me in that same routine of take your medication, feed the cat. Take your medication, feed the cat.
Do you thrive off of routine? Are you a very like schedule oriented person?
Very schedule oriented. I don't like to know. I'm the person that if I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, it bothers me. I like to know what I'm doing for the month. I have a big issue with not planning things accordingly. I like to know what my month's looking like, what my week's looking like, because a lot of times I'm forgetful. If I don't plan it that way, I'm going to forget it. So if I write everything down and I know, okay, this week, this is my task for the week. This week I have this photo session. This week I have this flyer to work on. And I'm constantly putting reminders in my phone, and I'm constantly putting that timetable of when I need to get things done. It helps me know that I need to get things done.
Do you like surprises, or do surprises? Is that something that like makes you anxious or anything?
Surprises, as far as me being schedule oriented, when something does come up suddenly and surprises, it's one of those things that kind of bring anxiety. So that's why I had to look at myself and figure out what causes my anxiety. And every person that has anxiety, you have to think about what causes you to feel this way.
Yeah.
If you know your triggers are social media, for example, like if you know there was a recent death of a public figure or an anniversary of a dead loved one, those are the times you probably should stay away from social media.
Yeah.
So learning what triggers you and learning how to cope with those helps you as a person, because at the end of the day, everyone has anxiety, but no one's going to understand your anxiety the way you understand your anxiety.
Right. You mentioned that in the African American community that mental health is a taboo topic.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? I didn't know that.
So it's a taboo topic because a lot of the time, especially in the African American community, when we think of counseling and therapy, we think of those are for people who are crazy. Newsflash, everyone's a little bit crazy. So everyone that has issues in their lives, thinking about it and not saying anything about it, that's crazy. Versus going to a therapist and they're a neutral person, and you can let everything out. They legally can't tell anybody what you're saying.
Yeah.
So having that form of release, letting things out, because a lot of times when you hold things up, it just explodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like shaking up a Sprite can. If you shake up a Sprite can and you open it too quick, it's gonna pop in your face. But if you shake up that Sprite can and you let it simmer and you let other people evaluate that Sprite can and you wait till that fizz finally go down, you can have a little bit more clarity. And another reason why I feel like mental health is such a taboo topic is because when we look at mental health portrayed in the media, especially in the older days, you see people in a padded room and straitjackets. I've personally been to a mental hospital. I've never been in a padded room with a straitjacket.
So have I. Yeah, I have never seen that.
So with that being said, people assume what goes on in treatment facilities, but don't know the real. A treatment facility is only there to help you get counseling. The treatment facility has counselors there that's going to constantly ask you, how are you doing? Do you need anything to talk about? they're going to help dig into that root problem. They're going to do blood work to see if there's something chemically imbalanced with you. A lot of times you can be bipolar and not know it. Bipolar disorder is very common in a lot of people. A lot of people wonder why they react so extreme to things. And when you see young people like, oh no, boys are just being boys. Boys are just going to be boys is some of the words that people use for people who fight a lot. And boys are just going to be boys isn't always the case, especially when mental illness is affecting everyone.
Sounds like you're really passionate about psychology. Was there at one point where you ever thought about that as like a career?
You know, I wish that I would have been a psychology minor. I didn't realize how much I like psychology because when you go to college, they make you take all these general education courses, which is sociology and psychology. I pushed those classes off because I was like, I don't need this. I'm never going to use this in my life. This is so unnecessary. I took my first psychology class after my psychiatric break. It helped me learn myself. It helped me learn my disorder because a lot of times, especially with homeless people, you get those stereotypes of that person is on drugs or that person is just crazy. No, that person could have been mentally ill and they seriously need help. They seriously need some type of check-in to a mental facility to help regulate them. They need some type of support system to let them know, hey, I don't have to walk around the street like this. There's better days to come. All right, and thanks you guys for watching our video today. And feel free to reach out to me via my website at joshuajohnsondesign.net or Facebook or Instagram at Joshua Johnson Design. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you found it helpful. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys later.